What's up, everybody? We are now down to just 8 teams left in March Madness this year, and in today's video, we're going to be making our predictions for all of the Elite 8 matchups all the way through the National Championship game. If you've been enjoying the content recently, please make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into it. All right, so we are here on ESPN looking at my second chance bracket, and right now my bracket is actually perfect so far. Went 8 for 8 in the Sweet 16 matchups, and let's go ahead and look at those Elite 8 matchups that we have. So the first game of the Elite 8 is actually out in the West region, where we have Florida taking on Texas Tech, the 1 versus the 3 seed, and this is one of, if not the most chalky Elite 8s that we have seen, with all 1 and 2 seeds, and Texas Tech being the highest seed out of 3 seed that have made it into the Elite 8. And in this matchup, this is going to be a high scoring affair. Florida looking absolutely dominant against Maryland, winning that game 87-71. And then you have Texas Tech, who came from 16 points down in the second half to upset Arkansas in overtime. An absolutely amazing game. Darian Williams was clutch down the stretch, hitting that big 3 to force overtime, and then JT Toppin getting back-to-back buckets to help Texas Tech solidify the win. I think this game against Florida is going to be a close one, but I'm definitely leaning Florida in this one, which is what I had originally chosen. Florida is looking like one of, if not the best teams in the nation. Right now, I think it's either Florida or Duke, as it seems, and they have been absolutely awesome, not only in the NCAA tournament, but also in the regular season and just this season as a whole. Walter Clayton has looked like that All-American guard that he is, absolutely coming up in the clutch for this team, also just hitting tough shots. You got Will Richard, Elijah Martin there as the trio in the backcourt with Walter Clayton that have been playing great. Elijah Martin was a really key piece in the early parts of some of their games in the NCAA tournament. Alex Condon has been playing good. You also have Aberdeen and a few others off the bench. This team is the most deep team in the tournament left, in my opinion, and I think that could hurt Texas Tech. But when you see Texas Tech and the way that they came back against Arkansas, it's something that you can't take lightly. They were able to shoot the ball incredibly well down the stretch, hitting a lot of clutch threes, as I mentioned. And in that game against Arkansas, starting point guard Elijah Hawkins did not play well at all. I expect him to have a bigger game in this matchup against Florida, but I'm still going to be predicting that Florida gets the win in this one. So give me Florida to advance to the Final Four. And then in our next matchup, we have Duke versus Alabama out of the East region, the 1 and 2 seeds. Alabama breaking the NCAA tournament record for most threes in a game, hitting 25, breaking that record by 4 in their Elite 8 matchup against BYU. Mark Sears was incredible, hitting 10 threes and finishing with 34 points, going up against a Duke team where we saw Cooper Flagg have another moment in March Madness. One of, if not the best freshman performances that we've ever seen in the NCAA tournament, when he dropped 30 points in their Sweet 16 win over Arizona. Caleb Love tried his hardest to will this Arizona Wildcat team into the Elite 8, but Duke proved to be too much. We saw Tyrese Proctor slow down a bit in his shooting, but Con Knipple had a really big game for the Duke Blue Devils. Kamal Malawach looked good. We actually saw Malik Brown get into some of the action as well, so it looks like he might play a little bit against Alabama, which I think could be big, especially against Grant Nelson in this matchup. This is going to be a really big game, and if Alabama shoots like they did against BYU, Duke is in trouble, but I don't think Alabama is going to do that twice in a row. So I do have Cooper Flagg and the Duke Blue Devils winning in this one, advancing to the Final Four. Then tomorrow, we see Auburn taking on Michigan State out of the South region. Auburn struggling a bit with Michigan there at the beginning, really close at halftime, but was able to pull away late. Janiah Broome had a big game, double-double for him. Then Michigan State outlasting Ole Miss in that Sweet 16 mashup. Sean Padula for Ole Miss was incredible in that game, hit a lot of big threes and big shots, but Michigan State proved to just be a little too much for this team. Jace Richardson was very efficient, was a bright spot for the Spartans in their Sweet 16 matchup. I'll look to him to do the same against Auburn. And although I do have Auburn in this matchup, Michigan State was a team when the bracket was initially released that had beating Auburn in this Elite Eight matchup. So I do think this might be one of the closest matchups that we see in the Elite Eight, but I'm going to be sticking with Janiah Broome, potential player of the year, and Auburn to get the win and advance to the Final Four. And then in our last matchup, we see Houston taking on Tennessee. Tennessee looking great against Kentucky, really dominated that game from start to finish and only won by 13 points, but honestly, this could have been a 20-point victory for the Volunteers. Zakai Ziegler looked great. Chaz Lanier shooting the ball extremely well. They had some other guys that hit some big shots, and if Tennessee's offense is playing like this against Houston, they definitely can win. Houston, it wins in a nail-biter over Purdue with the amazing out-of-bounds play that Kelvin Sampson drew up that got Milos Uzan to hit the final shot with less than a second left to send Houston over Purdue and into the Elite Eight. Houston struggled a bit from the offense in that Sweet 16 matchup against Purdue, which gives me a little hesitancy with them over Tennessee. I definitely think Tennessee can win this one. LJ Cryer didn't have a big game. They didn't necessarily shoot the best. And originally, I picked Houston in this matchup, so I think I'm going to stick with the Cougars to advance and get all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. But if I had to change on any of these, I would be changing and picking Tennessee to advance. So give me Houston just because that's what I originally had, but I do think Tennessee has the opportunity to knock off the Cougars in this matchup and advance to their first ever Final Four. So in our Final Four matchups right now, as I've predicted, we have all 4 1 seeds, and in our first matchup, we're going to get an SEC matchup between Florida and Auburn, a rematch from the regular season where we saw Florida beat Auburn, and I think it might go the same way. This Florida team has looked amazing in the tournament so far. Walter Clayton has looked like one of the best point guards in the NCAA tournament so far. In the depth, I've mentioned it earlier, but this team, so deep, they can run 8, 9, even 10 guys at you. I think they might be able to wear down this Auburn team, especially if they don't shoot the ball well like they did at the beginning of the Auburn and Michigan game. So I'm going to be picking Florida to advance to the national championship game. Well, they'll be taking on either Duke or Houston. And if I had to pick this matchup right now, it'd be the same as if I was picking right when the bracket was released. Give me Duke to advance to the national championship game. I haven't seen a person that can stop Cooper Flagg yet. And although this Houston team is one of, if not the best defenses in the nation, I think Duke just has too many weapons and is going to be able to outscore Houston in the long run. So I got the Blue Devils advancing to take on Florida in the national championship game. And in that national championship game, I originally had Duke winning it, and I'm sticking with that prediction. This is the matchup that I want to see, and I really hope it happens. I think these are 2 of the deepest teams in college basketball, and they're 2 of the most talented teams that we have still left in the NCAA tournament. You got All-Americans on both sides. You got stud freshmen on the Duke side with experience coming from the Florida side. John Shire and Todd Golden would meet up in their first ever national championship game, and I think it would be one of the best matchups that we've seen all season. So I'm picking the Duke Blue Devils to win in this one and become national champions. Let me know in the comments who you like in these Elite 8 matchups, and who do you have making it to the Final Four this year? If you've been enjoying the content, please make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.